Monkey here, back to talk about that Mantis X10 Elite system I was talking about earlier. And I was going to try and get into the nitty-gritty where I have a design background, so it might be a longer video, just as a warning. But I wanted to try and get into some stuff where there are good videos out there, and then there's some that's just like, it's awesome, like and subscribe, and it's, I'm trying to fill in the gaps. And so what I was looking out of the system is pistol. I've always struggled a bit with pistol. It's a very perishable skill. I don't get out to the range as much as I'd like. Now ammo prices are crazy, so I wanted a way to enhance dry fire, and I like the idea where it's kind of like I'll give you diagnosis, like having a little handy trainer there, and so I like the concept. And so jumping into it, I believe for documentation purposes, I'm going to be on the app version 5.4.11, and when you buy it, you get it. There's no like monthly fee or anything, so they may update it, and so that is a cool factor where it's in a constant development after your initial buy-in. So as a starting point, passing on dry fire, improving yourself recommendations, get some sort of dot sight. It's a superior sighting device. There's a lot more economical options these days that are good enough. And for what I'm concentrating on today, it's the idea is that you can self-diagnose how much wobble during grips, during your fire. That alone, without any wacky devices, you're able to see immediate feedback about how wiggly you are. And that's been working great in combination with the Mantis system. And while we're talking about add-ons, a core problem with a lot of dry fire is after you get that shot, you gotta rack the slide. And you're like, meh, especially if you're doing repeated drills, you know, that sucks pretty hard. So as I did in an earlier video, got the dry fire mag add-on. And so this gets it so I can have a repeatable, nice, realistic to, in this case, a Glock trigger press. So that speeds things up, also opens up the realm of being able to do rapid, whole lot of other stuff. So I highly recommend, this is my starting point. You can get fancier from here, but I think a recommended package from the start. So I'm in an odd position behind the camera, but trying to show it here. So here, it's kind of just a default. You can see how much the red dot moves when I'm pretty much not doing anything, just trying to hold it steady behind this camera here. And then say if I grip it real hard, get this effect. And then if I give a good trigger press, so if you do a bad job and you're jerking it like this, you'll get this effect. This kind of quick demonstration to show how useful just keeping an eye on how much the dot bounces while during dry fire. Going over the Mantis X series real quick. So what I'm showing you today is the X10 Elite, and that's like the fanciest, coolest version they've got right now. And so they have earlier versions where you can get a little more economical if you have more simplistic needs, but for the tactical stuff I'm interested in, the X10 looked like the best fit. It's got the most drills. It comes with some adapters I may not actually use, but the software side is more important to me as far as value for what I'm paying. And it also looks like they have some interesting ideas for additional upgrades down the line. But even as is, I think it's worth to go straight to the X10 right now. All right, going over what the kit comes with. So it'll come in a box like this. And then our instruction sheet. It's basically telling you instructions on how to get instructions online, but whatever, it's a start. The big show is the case that it comes in. There's a nice padded zipper. It's a bit of a mess now, just so it's easier for me to show you, but comes much better organized than I have it currently. So let's see, I put some stuff to a side. This is your main USB cable to connect to the main sensor. That's the big show. Right next to it, seemingly a bigger deal than it is the barrel adapter. So the sensor attaches to Picatinny rail, and so this is a way to get it on a barrel. And it comes with hardware to do that. And not so obvious to me, came with pads to fill in the gaps, because A shotgun barrel is pretty different than most rifle barrels. So it gives you some flexibility. Moving on, this is the extra sticky back adapter. So you get, this is the sticky back one. So Picatinny rail, sticky back. Comes with a screw as well because it has a screw hole just in case you really need to stick it to something. And then just like an alcohol wipe with a bonus microfiber cloth. And then sealing the deal with a cool guy sticker. Getting the party started, so you gotta get your sensor and put it on your pistola one way or another. So most intuitive, if you have a modern pistol, is to put it on the rail. For whatever reason, it's a little quirky on the Glock rail, just to get it started. Like something about the angle, like you gotta really get it just right, and then, you know, it's just enough to be annoying, but it doesn't take forever. So then slide it on until it clicks in, and this is a good time to say how, like, if you can read the Mantis enhance, if you can read that, then you have it forward facing, also having the little clip is away. The rear has a USB port. Try to get focus there. So that's just you need to know for the settings, but that's the most intuitive way. I have a flashlight holster, so it has enough room where I've been able to use it good enough on my Safariland ALS. But I do like the other option. So it comes with, so you just, in this case I have a dry fire mag, but for any mag, comes with the sticky back Picatinny adapter, and you could even get crazy and screw it in there, which I wasn't really into doing, so I just got, this is their specific base plate for Glock mags that Mantis makes, and I put it on the dry fire mag. And so that's another option, which is pretty cool. Also goes on a little easier. Doop, doop, doop. So now, get in the light there. So this way, it doesn't matter as much about what kind of holster I'm using. So then I can go back, put on things I would actually have normally. So like I like a weapon light. And so this is my preferred setup, but then you run into a little bit of issue when you do reload drills. You're dropping the magazine, you don't want to drop out your sensor as well. So then usually, unfortunately, I'll revert back and put it back here. When I'm doing reload drills, I'd also have to take out the dry fire mag. So don't get everything I'd want, but in the end, I'm able to accommodate one way or another to what I want to do with the systems. Moving on to the next steps, so there's a little button on the bottom. So you put it's recessed, hold that for a little bit, and it'll start to do a little green rave, and that means it's ready to connect to the phone. So I'll put over here flat, and using some fancy screen capture technology, well, hopefully we'll flow with this together. All right, so you'll get up to the Mantis app, click connect, thinks about it, scans. I think there's another step where first connected to Bluetooth, but usually goes about this easy for me every time. The connection's pretty quick, pretty smooth, and that's just a quick example of it. Next thing you're probably going to do is go to the settings. So bottom right, big gear settings, click on that. And here you can pick your gun type, so whether or not you're using a rifle or a pistol. You can see here I have a Glock. I don't think this is super important, but it's more for labeling and documentation, so you can see which weapon you've been working on when you look through history. You get your hand, and then shot detection. I screwed this up from the start. So when I first saw it, I was like, dry. And then more was like, that's someone else's problem. Started to get not so great on the detections. So eventually I got back to more. I originally passed it because it was CERT DFM, and I was like, whatever. And then I realized DFM stands for dry fire magazine, which is what I was trying to use. You can even further tweak it. So you have like min score threshold and shot detection delay. You can worry about that later, but my main thing I'm trying to say, if you're using the dry fire magazine, you definitely need to set that setting or it works pretty poopy. And then also I was talking about mount direction. You want to get that right, and mount location. And you have further settings later, but that's kind of your core starting, get your settings squared away to get started. Now, usually if it's a first time opening it will probably go to the Mantis X introduction. And so it'll look like this. I'm just forcing it, and so it's, oh, welcome, start the course. And I'm like, sweet. And then here's where I got stuck like a boomer. So I see this and I'm like, okay, do 5 shots. Click, click, press. I'm pressing, I'm sliding. I'm like, what is going on? And then I eventually recreated that there. So I see further down, it highlights open training. And so basically I eventually learned that the courses are just a suggestion of doing some of the drills in order. And so it doesn't matter how much you press this top label course director, like you got to go, okay, now I'm clicking on open training, and then it's telling you how to get that going. So that was a little quirky from a user interface perspective. Not the end of the world, but it would be much nicer if I pressed that top guy up there. Should have some sort of interactability. Going over some other critiques and some curiosities. So let's say you just blasted through the Mantis X introduction like a normal person on the first day, right? And you're like, all right, let's do some basic marksmanship. Start that bad boy up, perform the Mantis X drills. Or as I gotta slide down to the Mantis X, which is now no longer highlighted. I just gotta be a smart person. So click on that, start it up. I'll bang it out here as a demo real quick for you. All right, do some smooth hits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, it's a little fun rave, make it rain here. And average score, I could do a little better, but whatever. Okay, so done. And you're like, okay, what do I do next? So I guess I go back, and then I apparently gotta go back again. And okay, nothing obvious. I gotta scroll back up, and it's like, oh, all right, what's next? Challenge 2. Practice makes perfect. Do at least 20 shots a day for 4 days in a row. It's like, what is this Mr. Miyagi nonsense? Daniel-san, come. Watch back the car. Shoot 20 shots. 4 days in a row. Come back. Maybe I teach you more. And so it just rolls into of like, I have no breakdown of what these courses are. Some clearly could be better constructed than others. I haven't really had an issue with the basic and advanced combat classes, but when people are jumping into them, they should be able to, whether it be the app or online or somewhere, there's no course breakdown. I think a lot of people would find useful. All right, jokes aside, let's get into the meat and potatoes. So one of the first drills, open training. Pretty good example. You basically do what you want. Not a lot of guidance, that's fine. And so I have my settings how I want them. And let's start that bad boy up. So we're going to need some data first. And so let me get some, you can see this in real time. So let's get some all right shots. 1, 2, do some shitty shots on purpose. And maybe a couple good decent shots. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that was crappy on X. 5. All right, so we got some data. 11 shots. And now I'll walk you through it. So the first page, this has some diagnosis, but first page is actually just a nice text where you have overall score, you have your split times, pretty good information. And then, but the cool thing about the Mantis X, so you have a score with directional kind of like trainer tips. And so I did some obvious crappy ones, and they highlighted. So like if I click on any of those problem zones, it'll give a little like, oh, here's some tips on what you may have done crappily. And so that's pretty cool. And also, since I made it so obvious, that helps diagnose when you have problems, rather than everything's just a little bit off. It's like, I don't know, man. So this is an example of obvious things to work on. The third page is more of a graph, and so you can move between. So you can see the yellow is trigger press movement, and blue is hold press movement. And you see where there's the all right ones, and then there's the crappy ones, and of course the score goes down. And this kind of gets a little finicky between the pages. So like you're wanting to scroll between say I have 11 shots, I want to scroll the graph between that, but then I also want to go to the next page. It can be a little tricky on how to scroll to that. So usually this good shot text will drag to the next page is kind of a zone I've found more consistent. I wish they have these little tiny red and gray areas to show you which page you're on. That can be helpful, but it's so small. I mean, you can't click on that. It's just a visual. I wish those were thicker, maybe something that's a little more concrete. But anyway, so getting back on track. So that was the graph page. Fourth page is a pretty cool, run into the same slider problem here though, but say like number 1, you want to see how you did. You can even hit play. And so this is like showing the time before the shot, and then during the shot, and then a little bit after. So your blue's like getting ready to be on target, yellow's during the trigger press, and then the red is the after the trigger press, and since it's dry fire, it's not particularly rowdy. And let's see here, we can find some bad ones there. Number 3 is purposefully crappy, and you can see a whole lot more movement. And then finally, it gets a little confusing. So since I still have it active, this is if you click stop there, there'd be nothing here. There's no labeling. You don't know what's going on. But what it actually does is a real-time your current sensor reading, which can be pretty helpful if you're just trying to like point out there and you're doing see like how much shake or do a quick trigger press. You can kind of diagnose just about how much it is moving there. I just wish it was labeled better. It doesn't need to be so secretive, because it's a straight up blank page if you're not right. So like if I click stop now, let's see here, will it still go? Yeah, nothing. So anyway, that's the core starting point of a breakdown of the different options. That's open training, but that overlaps with a lot of the other drills. All right, getting serious, boys. We got the gear on. Let's check out the holster draw analysis. And so this one's pretty cool. For some reason, doesn't care if it's search. It's just either live fire or dry fire. Start that bad boy up. And so it will actually talk to us, which is cool. So holster. Getting a couple reps here. Number 2. Three. 4. And we'll try to do a slow controlled one. Alright, that's enough little data to get started. So we'll stop. And you can see here we got some, you have a average and so times on each one. I tried to mix them up so we have a little more data. So it's pretty cool. You have a breakdown of grip, pull, how long to get horizontal, how long you're aiming at the target, how long it takes to get to the shot once you're looking at the target theoretically based on the data it's looking at. One problem is that there's no shot score, which is pretty crazy. Like, I don't know if they felt it would be too overwhelming, but I really wish the shot score was here. Otherwise, pretty cool drill or segment of the Mantis X. And you can see here on the other page, I'm kind of doing something funky, so it's not as clean as one would like it, but it shows your consistency on making sure you're not like really swinging it wacky ways. So I'm at least in the ballpark, but this could definitely be improved, but it also helps just show you data for a second. So this is the holster draw analysis. So for the recoil meter, I'm just going to gloss over because it's mostly meant to be a dry fire video. And so I hope to do follow up live fire, but it's already going to be long. But anyway, it's pretty cool because it will track how much you're going up and then back on target and can't, and all this data that normally most people could just be like, oh, it's like feels 20% less snappy, or just vague concepts. So finally you have like some real world data where you can compare that 9mm to 45mm. Other small things like, say, putting on a comp, putting on a suppressor, even the finer things like putting on a weapon light, seeing how much that affects your real world results. So that's pretty cool functionality. So another interesting section is the daily challenge. So this today just happens to be a type 3 malfunction. So let's use this as an example. So simulate a type 3 malfunction, feedway stoppage and clearance. So probably equivalent of double feed or failure to extract. Repeat 5 times. You can adjust the reload reset timer in the advanced settings. And so this is a pretty good example of a practical one. I've seen some that are more wacky and fun, like they're like, put your hand in cold water till it gets numb and then do some shots. And it's fun where it has the people a reason to come back to the application, and then even you can share it with buddy groups and compare times. Shows some of the advantages of being on some sort of online system that can be updatable and not just the same every time. All right, getting back to the core drills, let's check out the shot timer. And so this is very similar to the open training, but this one will give you an actual beep to get going. So that's a little different. And so get a beep, all right, whip it out, get in some shots. 1, 2, 3, let's do some crappy ones, moving on purpose. Ha! All right, and it'll keep going till infinity, till I tell it to stop, so I'm gonna tell it to stop. And you can see some of the data here, like purposefully crappy ones. They're pretty crappy. New things are you get a total time and then your split times. Everything else, so if I start scrolling again, you get that nice little helper pie chart. You get your graph, and then you get your animations of how you shot. And finally, again, because I stopped, that final page is just black nothingness, but not a big deal. That's your real-time tracker if you want to get into that. So those are just some of the differences of the shot timer. And one of the first drills the intro course will tell you to do is the Mantis X Benchmark. So let's give that a try. And so basically the idea is 10 just super chill shots. It's just take your time, just have a good warm-up. So let's start that out. We don't necessarily need to do that, so I'll just bang these out real quick to give you an example. I would go slower, but 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 beeps. So that means good hits. Cool. All right, and done. And as you can see, similar, you got an average score and your splits and all that. So that's the basic idea. It's similar to the other ones, but just it's limiting it to 10, so it will stop on its own at 10. And that's how it's different from the other one. So the timed benchmark is one of those that's way better at live fire. Go ahead and show it a little bit with dry fire, but so the core idea is maintain marksmanship while shooting as quickly as you can. Let them fly too good, having to rack it each time with normal dry fire. Even with the dry fire mag, it can only register so quickly. But I'll go ahead and show it to give an example. So let's see here. So other core differences is it does beep. So let's see here. For that, I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I believe it does stop at 5 every time, as far as consistency. All right, so we're done. Check, so you get an average score, total time, and then your splits. And so this is pretty cool if you really want to hone in, see like how quick you can get those 5 in while still keeping reasonable score. So that's pretty useful, just pretty hard to do with normal dry fire. Moving on is the compressed surprise break. And so this is a little different, where the idea, I suppose appropriate, is that you're prepping a trigger about as far as it can go, and you're just waiting. So like, say there's a bad guy, and you know you're pretty sure you're gonna have to blast him, but he has to do that last thing to really call a shot. And so start here as an example. So you get ready, you prep that trigger, and then you press it right as quickly as you. So I wasn't quite ready. Let's see here. And I got it, but it was quick but jerky. A little better. One more. And that's probably the great score, but an example. So you get an average score and an average time. So instead of splits, this is like how quickly you're pulling that trigger when you hear that beep. And so that's good practice for learning how to prep a trigger and pressing it without a big jerk, so you're not like I'm ready and all of a sudden you jerk it at the very end. So it is a worthwhile drill. Moving on, there's primary hand only. Pretty straightforward, similar to the open one. And so the idea is you use your primary hand. So there's start up, I think there's no beep, no particular time stress. So you just whip it out, take your time, and I believe it does 10 shots. So get in 1, 2, 3, and it is interesting where it can be pretty bouncy, but if you really start to get the groove of it, you actually can get some decent scores. Now let's see what we got here. Say that's like all right, but again, straightforward data. You can check out your little helper chart. All the usuals is just you're supposed to do it with your primary hand only, 10 shots. Similar to primary hand only, there's secondary hand only, so definitely more of the same. You're just supposed to use your secondary, your support hand. So you just convert that over, and it's not gonna beep, you just take your time. I am definitely crappier with my support hand. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it stops after 10. Let's see here. So, got similar, which is not too bad in the grand scheme of things. And as you can see, that's just a quick showing of the functionality. Okay, getting into fun stuff is the reload drills. So the first one is reload in battery, and that brings up, as I was talking about earlier, you gotta have your gun set up for it. So, doesn't work so great for the dry fire mag, and if I had the sensor on my mag, I don't want to be shooting them out during those reload drills. So, got the sensor in a reasonable place. I do have to take out the dry fire mag. And let's get a empty in there. And this is also a reminder that I need to change. Oh, it wants to calibrate. So let's go ahead and do an example of that. So here's what a calibration looks like, since we haven't done that yet. All right, quick calibrate. Lay it somewhere flat. So I have it on cert, and I want to make sure and put that on normal dry now because I converted over. So anyway, so I'll base this on their instructional video. Let's give it a try. Let's see. So they have it where they're already up, ready to go. And let's see what happens here. Ooh, shot. All right, we can do better. Charge it for the next one. Hopefully it doesn't. I think you can change it in the settings, but beep can be a little long on the default settings. And shot. That is a quick example. It's not going to be very pretty, but let's see what we got. All right, so here you can see some quick examples of some meh scores and some meh times, but just some quick examples of how that works. For the next reload, we have reload out of battery. So I already have my settings correct this time, pretty much ready to go with more of the same, basically. All right, let's start. Shoot ready. Let's get that locked back though. Try a little bit better. All right. And shot. So it's a good lesson on calming it down. All right, resetting. Got a mag ready. One more. And shot. See, I gotta really slow down for a good shot there. All right. So apparently I got a magical 96, but anyway, a quick example of what they expect out of that drill. Now, rounding out our reload drill party, we have the tactical reload, sometimes referred to as the admin reload. And so I'll base this on how they do it on their demonstrational video. Here's a quick example. So just quickly showing how it'll load up YouTube videos for better or worse. I guess that lets them change the links. Not every drill has this. So anyway, back on track. So reload drill, reload tactical, let's do this. All right. So I think the idea is you have it out, full mag, need a working trigger. Let's see here. So you're supposed to get one of these bad boys, flip it in, flip it out, put it back, and take a shot. Now preferably it would have been a different mag, so let's try that. So I'll just go a little slower to do it right. All right. So it's a chill. You got all the time in the world, buddy. Just, you know, doing a little admin action. And then blasting people in the head. All right. See what we got. And stop. So more of the same. So you got your average score and your average time. And that's the expectation of how to do the tactical reload. Next up, we have cadence drills. This one's a little bit quirky, a little bit weird. Not gonna lie, I don't like it. Going into it, so went ahead and got back in my dry fire setup. So let's do 1 second just as an example. All right, I need to get back on search. So supposed to do 5 shots, and this metronome is pretty low on the note. Like, I'm gonna turn up my volume here, max. Maybe it's my phone or something, but the beep totally is way louder than the metronome helpers, and I just don't find this useful. The times, like there's only 2 seconds, 1 second, and half a second. Like, I don't know what this is practical for. Like, who am I blasting 2 seconds exactly at a time? Just go to the timed benchmark, man. Like, anyway, I'll show. Here's a 1 second example. Here's how it goes every time. I've already done it before. I still don't know what's going on. All right, beep beep. All right, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like who's that for? Who does that help? Anyway, so there's an example of me. Like, I don't know. Am I trying to perfectly get 1 seconds? Am I doing bad because they're off? And then my scores. I don't know. Anyway, it's there if you want it. I would think you're better off with the timed benchmark. Next up is hostage rescue drills, which is pretty cool. The slight downside, though, is the idea is that you're just trying to get 85 or higher, so a good solid shot, and then you have beginner, intermediate, advanced. So beginner, you got to do this within 4 seconds. And then what's the next one? Intermediate's 2.5. And then if you're super spicy, 1.7 for advanced. And so a slight problem is that there's no real target. So like, either you got to make yourself a little simulated hostage, and it could be a little frustrating because you'll whip it out and have a pretty darn small like hostage scenario target and feel like man, I hit that, and then they'll be like, I can give you 70 points, and you got to get an 85. But anyway, I'll show a quick example here. Here's beginner, 4 seconds. So you start from the holster, you're just trying to whip it out, get a good clean shot. So, like so. So I'm trying to get fast and then slow to the shot. Do one more. One more. Let's see, where are we? Stop. All right, so I saved 2 hostages. That's better than normal out of like no warm up. And so you can see time's pretty all right, but some of the scores, 83. You know, that's in theory a dead man all of a sudden if that shot's a little shaky, according to this drill. That's just kind of one of the downsides where it can't see the target. So it's a simulation. So as a quick follow up on that spicy hostage advanced. So like that 1.7, that is tough for me. Like that for me, and I'm using a duty holster, get it out in 1.7 seconds. Like I feel like I'm just pushing that trigger, and whether anybody's ready or not. So that makes people that are doing this consistently, props to you. But I'll show you real quick some attempts. So it's hard enough for me to get it out at 1.7. So like it didn't even register. So like you're like, try again, chump. So I gotta slow down. So what is that? 1.85. Didn't even save anybody. I get 74. At least 1.5. What? 67. So you can see, for me to get that speed, I gotta try a little slower. 15. I don't know what. So again, I don't even barely have time to look at my sight. It's a little bit better by slowing it down, but whew. Anyway, just showing like that. That is a tough time span. So props to me. Maybe I'll work up to that eventually, but that is tough comparing to how much I can get out of the friggin' original holster analysis. Shows I only have so much time to improve to actually get a decent 85 score shot. So for some sneaky extras, you can actually go into settings and then down there at the bottom, advanced settings. You have Army qualification and ISSF drills. And so those open up when you go back. Unfortunately, the ISSF drills more for documentation. Like say here, 25 meter pistol. When you go to it, it's the equivalent of just open training. Like it's not particularly specific, doesn't necessarily open magical functionality. That's probably why they're hidden in the advanced area. If you're doing it, it's nice little for that team. But for most people, probably not so useful. The Army qualification ones, however, have a little bit more plausibility. So like say take table V here. It's given specific time on like how many target presentations there are and the time between each one. And so it'll give a beep and then a pause between each one and 30 times. So that's something unique. And then I believe VI is the same one. The CBRN gets down to, it's a different timing and 7 repetitions. And I believe the Nightfire one, it's very similar, but 5 presentations. That's beeping time. So anyway, just that's why they're hidden under advanced, but the Army one, someone might be able to use. But this also brings into, like, it would be nice to have the equivalent of a custom drill creator. There's not a whole lot going on. Like basically, like, do you have a starting beep? Like how many repetitions? Like you expect 10 shots and stalls between. And it'd be nice to have, say like you're doing a timed benchmark drill custom. It'd be nice to have other stuff. Like I feel on shot timers a little lazy to have the beep be the same. Like, is it that much to ask for maybe like a beep and then at the end a boop? It was a slightly different tone, a little bit more clear. I feel like, especially you got a whole smartphone on crazy stuff you could do, missing out on, you should at the bare minimum be able to recreate functionality of a shot timer. So at least that's updatable in the future. That should be plausible. I think they're essentially doing that when they're custom creating the courses. And so hopefully they bring that functionality to the general user soon. Topping it off with some more nerdy details. So we got settings, and we'll sneak back in there to advanced settings. So you got daily shots goal, not a big deal, kind of up to you. But the buzzer delay and the buzzer delay for reload drills, that's pretty helpful. It definitely adds in a little forced randomness. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. Kind of odd, you can't just make it an exact one, but whatever. And then some other ones are, say like the theme being light. The black is pretty sexy, but white might be more useful in other lighting conditions. The cant will be the rotation, and I'll show you where that shows up. And then bullseye mode basically adds more data to that animation trace path page, and then the trace view of that page. Auto zoom kind of tries to average out the zoom a little bit more. Say like if it's really rowdy, it'll try and zoom it out, and if you're really precise, it'll try and zoom it in. But it's usually just an average. So you can understand these, I need to show you some data here. So let's whip out a quick open training. So let's get some shots. Let's get a clean one. Another. And then do like a crappy one. All right, so I got a little data there. So now, hopefully visible for new information. So it's mostly on this page. So you can see those are crappy ones. So let's start with the first one. So it's kind of auto zoomed, and you see that little average there. That's the cant. Let's see. Yeah, you can see the cant changing a little bit between shots, and then that auto zoom is, as you can see, not perfect, but these are pretty different. Like the first one is way more reasonable than the last one, and it's trying to kind of hone in on the action. So yeah, just a quick overview of some of the secret advanced options. Having the Mantis system go on other weapon systems, such as rifle here, is pretty cool. It's interesting where I suppose it didn't necessarily change the calculations too much. I would say it's equivalent of putting things in hard mode. Like you can still use a pistol and put it on rifle settings, and it'll just be really strict on the scoring. But that said, as far as installation example here, since I have a front sight, wasn't too easy to slide on that way, so I just snuck a rail package on the side, and that made it easy. Real easy to switch on rifle mode, good to go. But that said, wasn't that great for what I wanted to use it. So I'm interested in CQB, home defense, and that causes a lot of movement into the shot that the Mantis system just isn't really great at the moment. Where it's much better, say if I'm just taking real different positions, long controlled shots, nice and clean. It's more interested in that. And also, I'm not really struggling. It's a pretty nice AR trigger. It's looking, my score will adjust way more on how great my support hand is doing and how fatigued I am compared to my trigger shot. And I'm not as worried about that. So that also boils into, say, when I was talking about pistol stuff, any sort of, say you're driving into targets, any sort of movement into your target, it doesn't like that, such as when I was complaining about the hostage drill and advanced mode. Like for me to make those times, I feel like I still have to be moving, punching out, and pushing the trigger into it, and it just sees that as a crappy shot, which can be pretty frustrating, where you feel like you saw the red dot and it was totally within reasonable parameters. You're like, I totally would have shot that guy. And then the Mantis system's like, best I can give you is 50 points. And it's a little frustrating, but that also segments into the pluses and the minuses of the Mantis. So the fact that there's essentially no target, if that wasn't clear, and that can be pretty cool because you can just point at anything, no setup. You can be running around the house, just point, getting clean shots. Like Mantis system doesn't care. It's just looking at good trigger presses. The flip side of that is everything else I talked about, such as movement into shots. It seems like they might be looking into addressing that, where on the development block they were talking about moving while shooting. So they're at least looking into it. I also wouldn't know how to change the math any to make it better right this second. So it's a difficult task, because what the Mantis is looking at is the movement before the shot, during the trigger press, and then a little bit after. And like that's all it has to work with. There's only so much you can do with no target whatsoever. On that, you can combine it with other systems. So it could be interesting to combine with, they also have the Laser Academy, so you can actually have a laser striking thing, but I'm trying to avoid those, where if I do it, I want to do IR, so I'm not always looking for a red laser hit. So there's some interesting stuff out there, but it's a pretty big price jump. And on that point, for the $250 that the Mantis costs approximately currently for the X10 version, I'd say I'm pretty happy with it. Like all the pluses and the minuses. I think end of the day, it's definitely helped what I wanted, where I was able to, day one, start honing in my trigger, clean that up, and really finding that balance of like how quick, especially like the hostage rescue drill, like I'm trying to get really quick into that, pulling it out of the holster, and then I gotta calm down and slow down to actually get a worthwhile shot, and not just like some wild, just jerking it out there and getting like a 40 bad trigger press is not useful. So it's been great at that, trying to balance that speed and accuracy. And it's kind of the equivalent of, say, like if you took a fundamental class and all that ammo to get the equivalent reps that I did, and being able to diagnose oneself at that point too. So like really small changes, like just pushing my finger, see immediate results of like what I'm able to dial in, and dialing in my grip and trying to stay consistent to that. Take a long time, even if you had like a one-on-one trainer. It feels like the Mantis X has given that to me for when it comes to like core fundamentals. So again, I'm a little on some of the like fun moving and shooting stuff, but I leave that more for live fire, which then comes to the point that this video is mostly about dry fire, and so definitely look forward to trying it live fire, where it's even more actions, such as like the timed drill And even just, like for me, I'm always fighting anticipation for live fire. And so I'm hoping I'm able to confirm results with a good dry fire. And then when I start ramping it up in live fire, that when I get carried away, it'll help me diagnose, get rid of that anticipation, which just sometimes usually takes me like a weekend long class, 1,000 rounds to kind of smooth out, get me calmed down. But anyway, in the grand scheme of things, I found it worth the money for the amount of technology and the future upgrades and all that jazz. I think the Mantis X, in my experience, the X10 system specifically, has been worth it. So it's been a long ride, but thanks for hanging in there, and hopefully you've enjoyed it. As always, thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to support us, please check out the MIL-SPEC Monkey Store. Although known for morale patches, we also specialize in a good selection of DIY hardware and tactical accessories.